Hello, I'm State Representative Jim Buchy from the 84th House District. Welcome to Ohio in Focus.
And welcome to this edition of Ohio in Focus, a program that brings state government to you. I'm your host, Carolyn Best. We have with us today State Representative Jim Buchy, who serves the 84th House District, which includes all of Mercer County and parts of Auglaize, Darke, and Shelby counties. Thank you for joining us, Representative.
Well, thanks for having me again, Carolyn. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Our first topic, algal blooms and phosphorus, the problems that have been taking place, and recently Toledo had their water scare, and all these things, as well as safe water supply and even locally Grand Lake St. Mary's, have been on the minds of many Ohioans. What have we learned from the Toledo water scare?
Well, the first thing we learned is how important water is to the quality of our life. And with that situation in Toledo, where over 400,000 people were without safe drinking water, it obviously brought it to the forefront in a hurry.
Mm-hmm. And how is Toledo's water problem different from that of Grand Lake St. Mary's, which is something we've discussed on this show before?
Sure. Well, up to this point, Grand Lake St. Mary's situation has been a buildup of nutrients for 150 years. It's a man-made lake. It's the largest inland lake in Ohio. It's a very shallow lake. The western basin of Lake Erie is shallow in terms of the other Great Lakes. It's obviously a lot deeper than Grand Lake, which is at its best about 8 feet deep. Having said that, in my opinion, the bulk of this particular problem was exacerbated not only by farm runoff, but going back to 1988, Toledo officials have mismanaged their sewage treatment. And it's evidenced by the fact that the EPA, even as late as several months ago, indicated to them they have to make some upgrades because they're not conforming to standards. So I believe two things have happened here. One, everybody has a stake in water quality. Toledo, north coast of Lake Erie, and so on. A lot of it is directly attributable to agriculture. But in the since 1988, for example, there have been changes in Ohio law and regulations and best management practices, whereby the farming community has made terrific improvements in the reduction of phosphorus and nutrients into the rivers and streams of Ohio. I'm asking a lot of questions about what's going on in Toledo and the North Coast, because there's no question, because of mismanagement, that has been a major contributor to that situation that erupted several weeks ago. So I'm encouraged, and because of it, everybody who has an interest and a stake in this is working together to see what we can do to make the whole situation better.
And you even just mentioned this. How is phosphorus related to the algal bloom problem, just for those who might not know?
Sure. Carolyn, all you have to grow algae is water, phosphorus, sunshine. Grows abundantly.
Gotcha.
Now, interestingly enough, there's a lot of research going on because there are many different strains of algae, and a lot of it can be put to commercial use. Even some algae will produce oil, as in oil that can be refined into all the things that oil is refined into, carb, gasoline, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of research going on, and hopefully someday we will have tremendous economic use of algae in the marketplace, which will help the environment.
All right, and you had talked about agriculture in that role in this problem. Are farmers alone to blame for the poor water quality?
Absolutely not. But they politically speaking, they constitute the smallest voting bloc, so they're the easiest to pick on. And but I'm not saying that farming is not innocent. It is not. But farmers as a group are the best environmental stewards in the world, and they don't want to be mismanaging the soil by over applying commercial fertilizers and so on. And of course, we've recently passed legislation to help commercial fertilizer applicators have the same requirements and certification that manure appliers have. So as that becomes law in place, you're going to see improvement on the commercial fertilizer applicators. But my point is that agriculture is extremely sensitive to reducing nutrients in water.
Right. Okay, and switching gears completely, House Bill 597 was recently introduced, and it has to do with Common Core. Definitely an issue we've talked about on this show many times. How does House Bill 597 affect Common Core? You know, what is it doing for that issue?
Well, House Bill 597 would repeal Common Core, which has been accepted by the General Assembly in 2008. And what it will do is phase out of Common Core and phase into new standards that will be created in Ohio and for our citizens in our schools. So it's a phase out and a phase in, and the idea is to make our education better. There is a philosophical debate over the direction of education in America, and certainly that's what at the crux of House Bill 597.
And how will this bill help school districts locally?
Well, one of the things it does, obviously, is bring more, and by the way, Governor Kasich supported House Bill 497 mid-budget review, in which there was amendments put in by our Senator Keith Faber in the Senate, which would help get more parental involvement, not only at the local level, but with the 4 new state committees that are being created to look at the 4 core subject areas. So we're going to have more local input. We want the curriculum that's taught to our children developed and picked by our people here in Ohio. We want our standards written by education experts in this state. Look, Ohio is going to be the #1 state in the country. We're going that way right now. We certainly are from an economic standpoint. But frankly, as you may or may not know, and we may have talked in the past, Carolyn, I have 20 schools in the 84th House District. 16 of them are on the new report card are A's, 3 are B's, and 1's a C. I would venture there aren't too many House districts that have better education in public schools than the 84th House District, and we want to keep it that way. We're better than anything that we have before us now, and that's what we're working at.
All right. And for this bill, it was actually heard in the Rules and Reference Committee, which you are a member of. Can you talk a little bit about the committee process?
Yes. The interesting thing about this is, now, you know, this is my 22nd year in the Ohio House, and this is the first time that I've seen legislation actually deliberated in the Rules and Reference Committee. The Rules and Reference Committee does 2 basic things. One, it takes bills that have been introduced by members of the House and assigns them to one of the 17 permanent standing committees which deal with that subject matter, usually on a regular basis. Then when bills are reported favorably out of those committees, they come back to the Rules and Reference Committee, and then we determine if and when that legislation will go to the full floor of the full House for third consideration. So that's the normal procedure of the Rules and Reference Committee, however, and function. But in this case, now, nothing precludes the Rules and Reference Committee from hearing legislation just like any of the other permanent standing committees. And in this particular case, there was legislation that speaks to Common Core that was in the committee, in a committee, and in which it was not having a lot of public consideration. So the decision was made to have House Bill 597 go to the Rules Committee for full hearings.
Great. All right, and we're now going to move to House Bill 488. It has to do with college credit for military experience, and was introduced by Representatives Davila and Landis, and was recently signed into law by Governor Kasich, and will be effective later in September. Can you explain a little bit more about this bill and how it helps our veterans?
Well, the major thrust of this is to allow veterans who have been in the military, when they get out, who want to go on for further education, higher education, college, and so on, to be given credits for the training and experience that they've had while serving in the military. For example, if a member of the armed services does a particular job in the military, has taken that training, learned that proficiency, and done well with it, that experience is far better than probably the coursework that they would be obtaining otherwise. So it makes sense to give them full credit for what they know and what they've learned while being members of the military. And certainly I support that. As a matter of fact, there were 76 co-sponsors of that legislation. There's overwhelming support for the concept of working with our veterans so that we can get them trained in the college arena once they come out of the military, because we need their expertise in the marketplace. And this certainly is going to facilitate that and make it just.
And how is it different from the GI Bill?
Well, the GI Bill the GI Bill helps pay for college training. This gives credits for it, for that previous experience in the military. That's the big difference.
Great.
GI Bill.
All right. And now moving on to our Mercer County profile, great part of the show where we can talk about different areas in your district and learn about their different attributes. So can you tell us a little bit about Mercer County? What makes it different from other ones in your district?
Well, first and foremost, Mercer County is family driven. Family, faith, freedom. There are almost 20 Gothic cathedrals in Mercer County of Roman Catholic faith, and families in Mercer County are some of the most successful in the world. Mercer County has the lowest unemployment rate of any county in Ohio every month. It has a terrific amount of values. I told you earlier about the quality of the schools in the district. Look, when children in the Marion Local School District start kindergarten, they've already been doing chores for 2 years. They're reared by two-parent families. And as I say, I can take you to the intersection of US 127 and 119, State Route 119, and show you 6 steeples. You can see them. So that's the genesis of the success of Mercer County. And then we have tremendous family agriculture. Mercer County is the #1 agriculture producing county in the state. Of course, as you know, the 84th House District in the aggregate produces about 10% of total agriculture in the state. So these are hardworking families, and it's generational. Children that go to school in Mercer County, many of them go on to Ohio State, University of Dayton, they go to ATI at Worcester, because they go from generation to generation to generation in the agriculture community. We obviously have the jewel of Grand Lake St. Mary's, and make no mistake about it, it is a top tourist attraction in Ohio. And that lake, as it gets better each year, the quality of the water in it only grows in its aura of being a good place to have a family vacation. It's family oriented and so on. So we have tremendous businesses in the area. It's just, it's just one of the best places in the world to live and rear a family.
Great. Sounds like a great place.
It is.
So just for those who are watching, can you talk a little bit about how to contact your office in case they want to get in contact with you? Sure.
Well, the easiest way to get me personally is our phone is 614-466-6344. Email is rep84@ohiohouse.gov. And then, as you know, we have the monthly survey. We encourage everybody watching us here to take our survey, and that is tinyurl.com/Buchy September 2014. Please take our survey, because I want to know what's on your mind. What do you think? That helps me work better for you here in Columbus.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Representative.
Well, thanks for having me again, Carolyn.
No problem. We look forward to seeing you again on the next edition of Ohio in Focus, the program that brings state government to you. Thank you for joining us.